That green can of Parmesan sitting in your refrigerator door right now is not what it used to be, and neither is the plastic tub next to it. I spent 6 weeks pulling FDA court filings, lab test results, and ingredient labels going back a decade, and 4 of the brands you probably trust are not going to like this video. Castle Cheese Incorporated. The Criminal Conspiracy. Castle Cheese was a small Pennsylvania manufacturer that spent decades supplying grated cheese to grocery store private labels, the kind of anonymous factory operation that never had its own name on the shelf but touched almost every pantry in America. For years, it produced the store brand 100% grated Parmesan, sold under labels like Market Pantry and Best Choice, and shoppers assumed a store brand simply meant a cheaper price on the same product. In 2016, federal investigators from the FDA and the Department of Justice tested Castle Cheese's product and found something that had nothing to do with price. The cans labeled 100% Parmesan contained no Parmesan at all in some batches, just cellulose, the wood-pulp-derived fiber used as an anti-caking agent, mixed with cheddar and Swiss cheese substitutes to bulk out the can. Company CEO Michelle Murder pleaded guilty to criminal charges for selling adulterated and misbranded food. In plain language, the label on your shelf said Parmesan and the can was lying to your face with a federal conviction to prove it. That grated Parmesan that never seemed to melt right, that turned into a gritty paste instead of a silky coating on your pasta, you blamed your saucepan or your heat setting. The problem was never your cooking. The problem was a can that was legally proven to contain a filler product marketed as cheese. Great value, Walmart's store brand. The retail giant's silence. Walmart launched Great Value in 1993 as its answer to national brands, a way to sell nearly identical products at a lower price by pressuring suppliers to cut costs wherever possible. Walmart does not manufacture Great Value cheese itself. It contracts the work out to whichever supplier bids the lowest, and that supplier answers to Walmart's margin targets, not to your dinner table. When Bloomberg News commissioned independent lab testing of grated Parmesan brands in 2016, Great Value 100% Parmesan came back at 7.8% cellulose by weight, nearly double what FDA guidance considers an acceptable trace amount for an anti-caking agent. Retail giants do not source cheap fillers because they love Parmesan. They source them because a fraction of a percent shaved off ingredient cost multiplied across a national supply chain becomes real profit, and nobody at corporate headquarters has to taste the difference. That Parmesan that clumped into a hard brick at the bottom of the can, that never dissolved into your Alfredo sauce, that cellulose fiber behaving exactly like fiber, refusing to melt because it isn't fat and it isn't protein. Your family ate a wood pulp additive and called it cheese night. Essential every day, Albertsons and Jewel Osco's store brand, the nostalgia exploitation. Jewel Food Stores opened its first location in Chicago in 1899, built on a promise of honest weight and honest pricing to working-class families, and generations of Midwest shoppers grew up trusting the Jewel name on the shelf. Today, Jewel Osco is owned by Albertsons, a grocery conglomerate that operates under a dozen regional banners and consolidates private label production under a single house brand called Essential Everyday. Albertsons does not manufacture Essential Everyday cheese in-house. It licenses the name and formula to contract cheese processors, and those processors are selected competitively based on cost, the same way Castle Cheese won contracts before its executives were indicted. The Bloomberg lab testing found Essential Everyday's 100% grated Parmesan carrying 8.8% cellulose, the highest cellulose content of any national or regional brand tested that year. A regional grocery chain that built a century of trust on a Chicago street corner now sells you a can that is, by independent lab measurement, closer to 9% wood pulp than it is to full-strength cheese. James L. Kraft started selling cheese from a horse-drawn wagon in Chicago in 1903. And by the 1940s, Kraft grated Parmesan was the can sitting on nearly every American kitchen counter, synonymous with a quick weeknight dinner for 3 generations. That green can with the red lid became a genuine piece of American food culture, not a niche product, but a household fixture. In 2015, Kraft merged with Heinz in a deal engineered by 3G Capital, a Brazilian private equity firm known throughout the food industry for aggressive cost cutting, backed by billions from Berkshire Hathaway. Private equity firms do not acquire beloved American food brands because they love Parmesan. They acquire them because a household name with decades of built-in trust lets you quietly adjust the formula while customers keep buying out of habit. Independent lab testing in 2016 found Kraft's 100% grated Parmesan contained 3.8% cellulose, a smaller share than great value or essential every day, but still measurable filler in a can labeled 100% Parmesan, with no mention of cellulose anywhere on the front label. 3 generations trusted that green can as a kitchen staple. What they were actually buying, according to lab results and Kraft's own ingredient panel, was cheese diluted with an additive that has nothing to do with milk. Meijer built its reputation across Michigan and the Midwest as a family-founded supercenter chain, opened by Hendrik Meijer in 1934 as a single grocery store in Greenville, Michigan, run on a promise of fair prices for working families. That family store identity is exactly why Meijer's private label cheese carries the same built-in trust that regional shoppers extend to brands with local roots. Like every store brand on this list, Meijer's grated Parmesan is produced under contract by third-party cheese processors selected primarily on price, and FDA labeling rules allow a product to carry the phrase 100% Parmesan as long as cellulose remains under a threshold regulators classify as a permissible anti-caking agent rather than an added ingredient requiring front label disclosure. That regulatory gap is the loophole every brand on this list has used. Your potato salad and your baked ziti that separated into an oily, grainy mess were not cooking failures. They were the predictable result of a can padded with fiber your recipe was never designed to handle. The Parmesan industry is counting on your brand loyalty and 40 years of habit to override the ingredient panel you never bothered to read. Now let me show you the 5 brands actually worth putting in your cart. Bel Gioioso is still family-owned, headquartered in Wisconsin, founded in 1979 by Errico Arricchio, an Italian cheesemaker who brought traditional aging methods to American dairy country. The ingredient list reads milk, salt, enzymes, nothing else, and the wheels age a minimum of 10 months before they ever reach a grating machine. Price runs around 80 cents per ounce, which spreads out to roughly $7 a month for a household using Parmesan weekly, less than a single fast food combo meal. This is the legally protected original, produced only in a designated region of Italy under rules enforced since 1955, requiring raw milk, natural rennet, salt, and a minimum 12-month aging period with no additives permitted under penalty of losing the DOP seal entirely. Visual note, DOP seal stamped on wheel. Do the fork test at home. Real Parmigiano Reggiano crumbles into dry, granular shards, never a paste. Expect around $1.20 per ounce, still under $10 monthly for most households. Sartori has operated out of Plymouth, Wisconsin since 1939, still run by the founding family, using milk sourced exclusively from Wisconsin dairy farms within driving distance of the plant. Their Parmesan ingredient list stays to milk, salt, cultures, and enzymes. Independent lab testing in that same 2016 investigation found Whole Foods 365 brand carrying just 0.3% cellulose, a trace level consistent with unavoidable equipment residue rather than intentional filler, making it the cleanest major retail option tested. Boar's Head has stayed privately held since 1905 and built its entire reputation on refusing fillers, byproducts, and artificial preservatives across its full product line, with Parmesan following the same standard. That can in your refrigerator right now, the one this video opened with, is worth pulling out and reading before your next grocery trip. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you catch the next investigation, because next week I'm tracing what actually happened to the olive oil labeled extra virgin on your shelf, and that story is worse.